Hello guys, Zennosh here and welcome to 7 Nights to overall tier list. And now let's get this started. The first one on the list is gonna be Legendary plus Rarity, Shane, Nestra's disciple. I will be placing her in the SS plus tier. One of the best damage dealer in the game right now. Next to Legendary plus Rarity, Cosette. Superb for overall gaming contents, especially in dungeon, raid, story, and arena contents. Massive nuke damage potential, defense ignore ability, stealth ability, can stun enemies, and boost her own attack upon every crit hit, which allows her to deal some crazy damage to the enemies out there. Now let's move on into the next unit, and that's gonna be Legendary plus Rarity, Ming, Nestra's disciple. I will be placing her in S tier. A good DPS unit for arena contents and grinding contents, but that's all there is to her. Can decrease target's ultimate skill gaze, ignores defense of the enemy, cast shield on herself, stun enemies, faster self ultimate skill gaze recharge, and so much more. And now let's move on into the next character, and that's gonna be Legendary plus Rarity, Baldur, Elena's sword. I will be placing him in the S tier right next to Ming. A good universal unit for grinding and arena contents. Quite helpful in story contents as well. Stun, defense ignore, decreased recovery rate, damage immunity to self, dispels buff of a target. These are the abilities that Baldur has. And now let's move on into the next unit, and that's gonna be Legendary plus Rarity, Cosette, Elena's sword. I will be placing her in the SS plus tier. Superb DPS unit next to Legendary plus Rarity, Shane. Strongest ranged DPS unit in the game right now. Great for overall contents, especially for dungeon, raid, and story contents. Has abilities like increases combo chance, ignores defense of enemies, recovery rate decrease, additional damage to targeted enemies, and she has got superb attack stats. And now let's move on into the next unit, and that's gonna be Legendary Elene, Empress of Bodina. I will be placing her in the S tier right over here. Great for arena contents and is pretty viable for story and grinding contents as well. Superb crowd controller with her shock ability, can boost attack of allies. And now let's move on into the next unit, and that's gonna be Legendary Rudy, Ultimate Guardian. I will be placing this guy right over here in the SS tier. Yes, best tank in the game next to Legendary Yvonne. Great for story, grinding, dungeon, and raid contents. Link allies for damage distribution, boost block rate, AoE cleanse, self shield, stun enemies, knock down enemies, defense boost to all allies. These all abilities allows him to become a really good tank in the game out there. And now let's move on into the next best tank in the game out there, and that's gonna be Legendary Ivan, White Wolf. I will be placing him right here in the SS tier. Best tank in the game next to Legendary Rudy. Great for story, dungeon, and arena contents. Taunts enemies, self HP recovery, and defense boost. Reflects enemies' attack right away. Now let's move on into the next character, and that's gonna be Legendary Alien, Phoenix Empress. I will be placing her in A tier. Great for arena contents, otherwise pretty average performer in overall contents. Has abilities like defense ignore, self shield, dispel buffs, paralyze enemies, self revive with all skill cooldown reset, which is pretty good actually. And now let's move on into the next legendary unit, and that's gonna be Delons, Annihilation Knight. I will be placing him in the SS tier. Superb DPS unit for overall contents next to Legendary plus Rarity, Cosette, and Shane. 100% crit rate ability. Wow, that's good, isn't it? Damage boost to whole team, silence enemies, ignores defense of enemies, and recovery rate decrease for the enemies out there. This all allows him to push out some of the really good damage out there in the game. And now let's move on into the next character, and that's gonna be Legendary Rarity, Yeonhee, Dimensional Guide. I will be placing this amazing character in the SS tier. One of the best ranged DPS unit in the game next to Legendary plus Rarity, Cosette. Superb for grinding, arena, and raid contents. Has abilities like can stun enemies, knock back enemies, decrease defense of all enemies, and increase damage received by enemies. Now let's move on into the next character, and that's gonna be legendary rarity Rachel or Rachel, right? There we go. I will be placing this Rachel in the SS tier. Amazing DPS unit next to legendary Delons and Yeonhee. Super for raid, dungeon, and story contents. Hard nuker, burns target, decreases block rate of enemies, increases combo chance of all allies. This allows her to be a really efficient unit in the game out there with her burning abilities. And now let's move on into the next unit, and that's gonna be Karine, Saint Elflight, yet another legendary rarity unit. And I would say she is a very amazing character in the game, and I will be placing her in the SS Plus tier. The best support unit in the game who can revive all dead allies. 2 dedicated healing skills, can grant shield and status effect resistance. A must-have unit for every PvE content in the game, but she could struggle a little bit in arena contents. Now that said, let's move on into the next character, and that's gonna be legendary rarity Spike, Ice Tyrant. I will be placing this character in the S tier, right over here. Great unit for arena and story contents, but pretty average unit elsewhere. Can freeze target, self-cleanse, dispels buff from enemies, becomes immortal for 6 seconds when HP drops to 10% or below, and gains attack speed and attack boost. Now that's it, let's move on into the next character. And that's gonna be rare plus character Lukey, Nestra's disciple. I will be placing him right away in the S tier. Great for raid, dungeons, and grinding contents, but pretty bad for story and arena content. Attack speed and movement speed boost for all allies, self-skill cooldown reset, decrease attack speed and movement speed of enemies, shackle ability, knock back enemies, increase combo chance of allies. These are all the abilities that identify the Lukey. And now let's move on into the next character, and that's gonna be rare plus rarity Cheng Chen, Nestra's disciple. One of the really amazing DPS unit in the game out there, and I will be placing her in the SS tier. Superb for raid, dungeon, and story contents. Struggles a little bit in arena contents though. Has abilities like ignoring defense of enemies, self-attack speed boost, stun the target, increase on-crit rate, decrease attack of the target, and so much more. And now let's move on into the next unit, and that's gonna be rare plus rarity Melissa, Nestra's disciple. I will be placing this character in the A tier right over here. A tier support unit. Pretty good for farming purpose, but pretty shabby elsewhere. Heals and cleanse all allies, silence enemies, decrease defense of a target, increases the crit hit resistance of all allies. Alright, there we go. And now let's move on into the next character, and that's gonna be rare plus rarity character. That's gonna be Lene, Elena's sword. I will be placing this character right over here in the A tier. Great for raids, but pretty average unit elsewhere. Solid nuke damage, self-damage immunity, decreased defense of enemies, increases damage taken by enemies. These are the abilities that identifies her. And now let's move on into the next unit, and that's gonna be rare plus rarity Henry, Elena's sword. I will be placing him right away in the B tier. Not really that amazing unit in the game. A below average unit, good HP heal for all allies, and that's all there is to it. Now let's move on into the next rare plus rarity character, and that would be Cade, Elena's sword. I will be placing this guy in the A tier. Average tank unit with self-recovery, taunt ability, and damage immunity to self when HP drops to 10% or below. And now let's move on into the next character, and that's gonna be a rare character, Casper, Special Problem Solver. I will be placing this character in the B tier. Below average DPS unit, can be used as a filler unit. And now let's move on into the next rare character, and that's gonna be Cosette, Magic Automata. I will be placing this character in the A tier. Good for raid contents, but struggles elsewhere. Niche unit indeed. And now let's move on into the next character, and that's going to be Rare Rarity Valdur, the Final Knight. I will be placing this character in the B tier. Honestly, one of the worst tank in the game right now. Let's move on into the next unit, and that's gonna be the Rare Rarity Rudy Reckless. I would say he's pretty good universal unit out here. I will be placing this character in the A tier. Very good for raid contents, but it's pretty average unit elsewhere. Can grant shield for all allies, stun and taunts target, and a very good semi-tank as well at the same time. So if you are actually going in the raid, you can pretty much take him right away. He's an amazing unit for the raid contents as he provides shield for all the allies in the team. And now let's move on into the next unit, and that's a Rare Rarity Theon, Revolutionary Beast Queen. And looking into this character right up here, I will be placing him in the B tier. Honestly, pretty bad at everything, this guy. So totally a loss right up here, guys. And now let's move on into the next character, and that's gonna be Rare Rarity Eileen, Eternal Empress. I will be placing this character in the B tier. Paralysis skill is all she has got, and that's it, guys. And now let's move on into the next character, and that's gonna be Rare Rarity Neo, New Ego. I will be placing this character in the A tier. Good for arena contents, but that's all to him. Niche unit indeed. Next character is gonna be Rare Rarity Selena, Heavenly Voice. I will be placing this particular character right over here in the A tier. This is pretty interesting actually. Good for raids thanks to her good support skills, provides healing, decreases skill cooldowns for all allies. That is so awesome indeed. Can be really helpful from content wise. Anyways, that's it. Now let's move on into the next unit, and that's going to be Rare Rarity Shay, Adventure Unit, a support unit. I will be placing Shay in the A tier yet again. Good for raids and pretty average unit elsewhere. Known for her ability to increase the ultimate skill gauge of all allies. Now let's move on into the next unit, and that's gonna be the Rare Rarity Juju Soul Guide. I will be placing this Juju character in the A tier. She's pretty impressive character actually. Pretty good unit for raids and dungeons. Inflicts paralysis on enemies while decreasing their defense. Boost damage done to the paralyzed enemies as well. So you can actually expect a little bit more damage output from Juju. Now let's move on into the another Rare Rarity character, and that would be Ming, Millennius Succubus. Alright. So I will be placing this character right over here in the B tier. Just a filler thrash unit. Not much more. Alright, now let's move on into the next character, and that's going to be the Rare Rarity Windigo. I will be placing this tank character right over here in the B tier. Filler type niche tank unit. That's all there is to it, guys. Now next character would be Rare Rarity Iota, a tank unit yet again. I will be placing this character in the A tier. Pretty average niche tank unit, and actually performs a little bit better actually. So anyways, that's it. Now let's move on into the next unit, and that's gonna be the the Rare Rarity Shane. Sorry about that. Yes, here we go. The Rare Rarity Shane Shadow Sword. She is a really amazing DPS unit indeed, and I will be placing her in the S tier right up the bat. Great DPS unit for overall contents. She's an essential unit for raid contents as well. And now that's it. Let's move on into the another unit, and that's gonna be the Greater Rarity Scott, Demon Hunter. I will be placing this guy in the A tier right over here. Superb 4-story contents, but very bad unit elsewhere. Good semi-tank with ability to grant heal and shield to himself while taunting enemies. And now let's move on into the next character, and that's the Greater Rarity Adele, Royal Blood. I will be placing this character right over here in the S tier tank. Yes, you heard me right. A greater rarity character in the S tier. Well, he is mainly known for boosting the fire resistance of all allies, which is actually pretty good for the raid contents. All right, excellent tank for the story and the raid contents. Decreases damage received by all allies, boost his own block rate and block efficiency, and decreases defense of the target, taunts the target, and boosts the fire resistance of all allies, which is so good indeed, guys. All right, anyways, now that said, let's move on into the next character, and that's gonna be the greater rarity Claire, unblemished patrol. I will be placing this particular character out here in the A tier. There we go. Excellent for arena contents, but pretty useless elsewhere. Knockbacks enemies, boosts critical rate of allies, dispels buff of the enemies, stuns the target, boost self-critical damage. That's a lot of utility actually. Anyways, that's it. Now let's move on into the next character, and that would be the greater rarity Miss Velvet Black Rose, officially my wife unit in this game, but oh well, she is really pathetic unit. Oh my god, useless wife unit, and that is such a waste for this amazing artwork design. And that's it. Now let's move on into the next character, and that's gonna be the greater rarity Henry Sadist. Alright, a ranged DPS unit, and I will be placing this character in the S tier. Yes, you heard me right. Superb for story and raid contents. Increases paralysis resistance for allies, which is great for raid battles. Can deal great poison damage to the target as well. And now let's move on into the next character, and that's gonna be greater rarity Ian Alchemist, a support character, and I will be placing this particular character in the S tier as well. Excellent unit for story and raid contents. Heals allies, boost damage dealt by allies, boost poison resistance of all allies, which are great for raids. And now that's it. Now let's move on into the next greater rarity character, and that's gonna be Guilahan, a magical engineer, a universal character out here, and I will be placing this character in the S tier as well because of his utmost importance in the raid contents. Superb unit for the story contents and the raid contents, known for increasing burn resistance of all allies, which is a great leverage in raid. There we go, guys, pretty awesome stuff right over there. And now that's it, let's move on into the next character, and that's gonna be the greater rarity character Tristan, this tank character right over here, Fortress of Steel. I will be placing this Tristan in the B tier, a very useless tank indeed in the game. Now that's it, let's move on into the next character, and that would be normal rarity character Cade, Elite Warrior. I will be placing this particular character out here in the B tier. Actually, most of this, like all of these starter units are actually gonna go in the B tier out here. They are pretty much very weak units, and they are pretty much filler and thrash unit, guys. That's what the game has actually given to us, the normal rarity units, and I think they have 60% chance to drop whenever we are doing any kind of gacha, and that is even saddest part out there. All right, and these are the only normal units that are pretty much available in the game right now, these 5 units out here, and man, all of them are totally in the B tier, or let's say the thrash units, or let's say the filler units. All right, so you play with them until you get the units of the higher tier out here. Anyways, that's it, there we go. This is the tier list as that of November 10, 2021. What do you guys think about this tier list? Please do let me know in the comment section below. I would really appreciate your feedbacks, criticisms, insights, and opinions about this tier list out here. And if there were any problems, and if you can actually really give me a really good, reasonable explanation, I can actually make a lot of changes in this tier list later on in my next video. That's it. That is it for today. Please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. That would actually help me a lot and this video as well. And see you guys in the next video.